Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 1899 Recaps. With me again is Anthony Blakcinephile. Hello.
What what is going on? I can't wait to dig through this fog we got here.
Yes, we'll be digging through the fog. That is the title of the episode. Now, Anthony, I was curious if you have you ever seen the movie The Fog, directed by John Carpenter?
Yes, I've seen the original and the remake, and I can barely remember either.
Okay. I saw the movie just last year. I love the title of this episode. I like the fog, the movie. I haven't seen the recap, but it took place in this little seaside town, and there would
Talking
be
about the
these,
original?
yeah, the original, this
Okay,
little
okay, yeah, yeah.
little New England town, and there were these ghosts and apparitions that came out of the fog and would kill
Mm-hmm.
people. And so right away the title was really alluring for this episode, I think. Um,
Plus, I
but
can imagine how difficult it is to kind of sail a ship through fog.
yes. Now we sort of chatted a little bit before, and you mentioned overall you really liked this episode and it really intrigued you even more. So
Yeah.
without getting into the finer points, could you
Mm-hmm.
share what was it about this episode, like overall, like what is it you liked so much about it?
So we're still in the spinning its wheels stages of this show, but I feel like this one really pushed the plot forward. We got a clue. We got a view into a certain type of character that I really thought was supporting, and we
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't really be digging that much into. So it was very like surprising when the episode started. I was like, oh, we're following this person. So going through that person's view, digging more into the secrets and the conflicts that happens with each character, digging more into some characters kind of like hiding their hand and not showing too much.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like there's also the big tension that happens surrounding a one specific plot point. And I really feel like this one we're slowly getting out of the spinning its wheel stages. We're starting to get towards actual action and in a more cemented plot. I mean, there is plot, but I think we're getting past the let's set this chess piece here, let's set this chess piece here. I think now we're actually starting to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I'm appreciating how we have different, I think how we view the show, the things we like maybe are slightly different. I kind of like the mystery and when which is maybe why I like this one a little bit less. I feel like there was less kind of there was definitely mysteries involved, but I feel like this episode overall had more action in it. Like more stuff
Mm-hmm.
happened to kind of move the plot forward, like you
It
said.
definitely it definitely gave me more questions, that's for sure. I got more questions than answers, but I like that. It's questions that make me want to watch more. I mean, I'm all in this towards the end, but it makes me want to like dig into more. I feel like the more it has me intrigued, the more the show wins me over, so to speak.
Yes. Okay, so last episode, I want to bring this up just because we kind of left something. There was, the big cliffhanger last week
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really get discussed at all, but the last
Yeah.
episode we focus a lot on Ike, the tragedy of his family, and
Mm-hmm.
seeing what happened to him, and he makes this decision to turn the ship around and tow it back to America. We also
Right.
had the boy being the lone passenger. So there was a lot of conversation about the boy and what his deal was and why he wasn't saying anything. And people were
Right.
really freaked out about that. At the end, we pulled back and there were these television screens and saw somebody's watching this all. That doesn't really get addressed at all in this episode, but I just wanted to remind everybody.
Made me a little peeved. A little peeved.
Yeah, I was like, you sort of landed that, you set that down on the table, and then you said, okay, we did that. Now we're gonna look at this other thing. And there was definitely another mystery and a cliffhanger in this episode that was interesting, but I felt like I kind of thought the episode would get into that television thing a little bit more, and it just sort of left it in the corner for now.
Don't look at this surprising thing. Look at this surprising thing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. If this was actually a weekly show, I'd be a little pissed.
Yeah. It's giving us more things to savor though. It's becoming harder, I must admit, the fact that we're only watching these every 2 weeks, just because I have our friends, the Sweet Child of Time podcast that I promoted last week, they're going at it at a rate of 1 episode a week. And so I'm getting further and further behind, but I'm getting to watch the episode many, many times and really notice a lot of the details. So I'm ready to get into it.
All right.
All right. So we open this episode with Ling. Now, is that the mystery character you were referring to? Or no, I guess not. Because you said you talked about the mystery character we're getting to know more. I assumed that was Ling, but I guess not.
No. It was Ling. I just didn't want to give it away before we got into it. Yeah, but I was very surprised how she started up being the I guess I guess what would you call it? The spotlight character. Yeah. Episode 1 we had Mora. Episode 2 there was Ike, and now we're at Ling. I was surprised how they that she ends up being the spotlight character. It was a nice surprise.
Perhaps all of the spotlight characters will be the people who were on the TV screens. I don't know. I mean, Ling was one of those people.
I would assume so. Yeah, it would only make sense.
But we get to see, just like with Mara, we saw this thing in the hospital. With Ike, we saw this thing in the fire. With Ling, we have this vision of her being dropped in a box into the water, and she's banging on the sides and screaming, and the warbly, distorted music is playing.
Yeah,
and
I love that image.
What struck you about it?
So I like, I'm not gonna jump ahead, but I like how it plays as a motif throughout the episode. It feels like she's in a box. Her character throughout this episode is in a box. To a later conversation we'll touch on, she's in this identity that's not really her own, and she's trapped herself through her actions. Her actions that weren't meant to be fatal were, and now she's trapped herself in a box. I just love the motif of it. I think it fits so well with her character. I like that because I don't think I got much of a motif with Ike and Mora's backstories. They're still intriguing, but I feel like Ling had a more solidified introduction to her character and her character's woes, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a good point. With Mara, it's just a couple seconds. We get to see more about his experience with the family, but we're like, oh, there's this tragedy that happened that's moving his plot forward. But with Ling, we sort of, in addition to a tragedy we find out about her, we also kind of learn what led to the tragedy and how she feels about her life and herself and her mother and the life she's had overall. So it did, even though there wasn't a lot of exposition or, dialogue, we did sort of learn a lot about her and maybe why she does the things she does and why she feels like she feels.
Yeah.
So she wakes up in bed on the Prometheus and she's frightened and panting. And then, after she calms down, she looks up and we see her geisha robe. Now, I don't know if we've ever seen the back of that robe before, but we get to see it this time. And on the back is a triangle symbol, of course.
Yeah.
And the robe is in this shape almost of a cross. And then she looks at her wig also. And you mentioned, Anthony, that she's taking on this identity that's not hers.
Right.
So she's looking at her costume, I guess.
Yeah, I really want to know what this triangle means. I know we're getting closer to the truth, and certain hints are being thrown and everything, but I really just want to understand what the triangle means. It's really starting to bother me a bit that I don't know what it means.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll find out one day, right?
We'll find out one episode. Well, hopefully.
um, so
Yeah, I
then go ahead.
no, yeah, I do think it's a costume. It's a costume, it's identity for her. And yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. I'm just wondering if we're ever going to understand what the voice is for every character that says "wake up" in the beginning of the episode after the whole like vision slash dream slash flashbacks that each of these characters have. I wonder we are we ever going to know where that voice is coming from?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. So in the next scene, we have Ling's now walking downstairs in her robe, and um, the way she does it is she comes down the stairs and then she looks out, and it kind of reminded me of the first day you're in the cafeteria and you don't know where to
Mm-hmm.
sit down.
Right, right, right.
She kind of looks out, and it almost like she's very uncomfortable in her skin and kind of doesn't know what to do with herself.
Yeah.
And then walks towards the table where her mother is sitting, and
Mm-hmm.
Virginia's at the table. And this was, in the first episode, Virginia's like, "Oh, look at those people over there. Look at that exotic little bird."
Right, right.
And now it's like, okay, all of that, guys, is off. We're done pretending like we don't know each other. I am now sitting at your table and openly speaking to you in public.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what do you want to talk more about what happened here with what she tells Ling?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I like the exchange between them. It adds a little bit more. Her name is Virginia, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It adds a little bit more of like menace to Virginia's character when she's like, well, come see me later and don't keep me waiting.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like the I don't know if we're there yet. I was gonna say that. Well, yeah, I like the exchange between Virginia and Ling. It shows some menace to Virginia, and it shows Virginia's dominance a little bit over Ling. And like I said, I like the mystery and intrigue that comes with the show, but I also like when it shows its hand a little bit through certain facial expressions in certain ways. Things are said, and like so much is unsaid. So much unsaid is said between two looks between two characters in some scenes throughout the show. Like even before her and her mom start talking, a lot is said between her and her mom as they look at each other. But I like that exchange.
Well, I thought it was interesting that she generally talks to Ling when she's in the dining room, and even in her room later when
Mm-hmm.
she's doing the examination, we could call it. And
Mm-hmm.
but when she means business, she speaks to her in Cantonese.
Mm-hmm.
When she's like, "Okay, we're not being nice. We're going to be direct now, and I'm speaking to you in Cantonese," which is interesting because I'm wondering how Virginia learned, to speak Cantonese.
Listen,
And
a hustler will learn whatever they need to learn to hustle.
mhm.
Virginia strikes me as a hustler, so I don't think a foreign language stands in her way.
Mhm. But yeah, I kind of wonder when she came, when they connected. Like,
Mm-hmm.
did Virginia come to China? Did they just meet on the ship for the first time? Like, it just, that kind of stuff makes me.
Yeah, she strikes me as a well-traveled woman. I feel like she's lived maybe like 1,000 lives or 500 lives up until this moment. She seems very skilled at what she does from a professional standpoint, like pimp by night, socialite by day. I feel like she's probably skilled. She's probably learned a lot of skills from her well travels.
Mm-hmm. And she has all these little sayings like, it's too bad that this is all happening, but with every calamity comes opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a great line.
yeah, she's still there's all these moments that it's like, okay, you could make a vignette out of this or like an inspirational calendar. Like inspirational sayings of Virginia. Um So their dynamic is weird. Like I don't know, it's odd. There's a definite like madam and worker dynamic.
She strikes me as a more focused Angel.
What do you like Angel and everything.
Angel, excuse me, Angel. There you go.
Yeah, I guess she's gonna use every opportunity for her to profit
Mm-hmm.
herself. Um So her mom here, after Virginia walks away, Yuke looks very dejected about the whole thing and is just very, I wanted to call it a low-key ringing because she's not like yelling or like losing her temper, but she's
Mm-hmm.
doing the kind of I don't know, passive aggressive mom strategy like, oh,
Right.
are you happy now? Look what you've done. And this was a huge mistake. And
Right. We should have never gotten on this ship.
we should never have gotten on the ship. And they're gonna talk more about that later. But I don't know, this scene really, I don't know, bugged her, the mom. It just, she's doing all these mom things where you're not giving any practical solutions or a way to move forward. Like, okay, we were in this situation, but we're gonna make the best of it. She's not a Virginia at all, is she? She's not looking at the
Oh,
opportunity.
I think she has more of the "I'm only here so I don't get fined" type of vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you know that reference. That
Mm-mm.
the football player Marshawn Lynch, he was at a press conference and he was only there so he wouldn't get fined. So anytime
Oh,
someone
okay.
tried to ask him a question, he went with the answer, "Hey, look, I'm only here so I don't get fined." And he repeated that answer many times, and it's just one. It's a great viral moment. So she kind of strikes me as like, "Look, I'm only here so we don't die." Like, and I think with the whole not providing any solutions thing, it's the same old broken record of like, how could you get us into this? We
Mm-hmm.
should have never did this. We should have never did this. And I feel like that's the vibe she has. She doesn't. She's not focusing on the positive or how to get out of this. She's focusing on like, woe is me.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, also she's kind of the victim. She's putting herself as the victim of Wing's
Right.
stupidity. And look how what a good mother I am for all that I've done for you, and you're butchering it all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay. So in the next scene, the Prometheus is being towed behind the Kerberos, and there's a couple of horn blasts for good measure. We're on
Right.
our way. We're not standing still anymore. Um, we have Crester, who is on the ship, and he's behind the bars again and
Mm-hmm.
calling for sister, and he's rattling the bars like an animal in a
Right.
cage. I thought it was a very, this was such a short moment, but at the same time, it was a very telling moment for Crester, who I'm beginning to see more and more does feel like that animal in the cage. He's trapped in this life that he doesn't really like. And
Yeah.
somehow he managed before to get open this gate to get help for his sister in episode 1, but now maybe they have a better security system on that lock to make sure that
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I mean, look how they live. They have them locked down there like they're savages because they're of the lower, poorer class. So you could probably feel like an animal in a cage.
Mhm. Also, just nobody's telling them anything. I think we go through the whole episode. There's lot of that
Yeah,
feeling of the people
that
down
was wild.
in third class that they even this family, our main family with Crester and his family, they speak Danish, but we find out there's a lot of passengers that speak Norwegian down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's different languages, but they're all probably because they don't have their own space like the people in first class. Each of the first class people has their own cabin, but the third class are all down in this one big gathering room. So there's no division like, oh, these are the Danish people, these are the Norwegian people. They're all down there
Mm-hmm.
together, and they all feel helpless because they're not being told anything.
Right.
They don't know what's going on with the boy or the ship. The people in first class are kind of getting to hear, there's different circles of who's getting to hear what, and the third class people are definitely on the low end of the totem pole.
It can lead to some antsy feelings, and it can lead to some anger. And I think that ties into what happens later. And it ties into some other characters that get a little antsy and angry, and that also ties into what happens later. It's great set piecing.
Mm-hmm. In the infirmary, we have Dr. Murray making a diagnosis, quote unquote.
Right.
I thought this was another interesting scene because we've all seen
I was
Law and Order,
surprised.
and we've all seen Law and Order and a bunch of forensic examinations and autopsies. We know what they are supposed to look like, and this did not look like that at all. Like, I don't think he even took her clothes off.
Right. And I love the turn the nose up comment he makes in Mara. This is why women shouldn't be in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I was shocked. I was like, whoa, the little girl did die. I thought she would just be found unconscious or something. I was like, oh no, she's actually gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because the
She's
way it left it, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, the way it left it, I didn't know if she was really dead or not. I was like, oh well, maybe we'll find out. So maybe she might be just like unconscious, or maybe she might just be how do you call it, catatonic or something. But that threw me for a loop.
Well, plus the way she died was, and everybody in this episode that shows up dead, there's a couple more later on, but they're all just lying their arms out, perfectly centered.
Perfectly still.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
that's how people die. It's dying unless you're like an old person. If you die, you're in like some kind of a you're in some kind of a ball, or you don't, that's why they put the
Right.
tape around the body. You don't just fall down with your arms like this perfectly aligned. So but yeah, I mean, a real examination to determine cause of death takes hours, and Dr. Murray, I think, took all of 30 seconds to check it all out. He determines there's no bruising, no broken skin, no poisoning. So she must have died of natural causes, such as what did he say, a stroke or a heart attack or something?
Yeah, something along those lines.
A stroke or
I
heart attack,
slight
yeah.
I slightly disagree with you. I think that might be for the sake of plot. That's why it takes that short. I do believe it is incompetent of a director of a doctor to come up with that fast, but I think it's more for I think it's more for sake of plot to make it that short. But on to looking at it from a straight like deep sense, it does spell incompetency.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, but he just said right. Yes, it doesn't, they didn't show everything for the sake of the plot. But at the same time, he said something as to the effect that this is just Darwin and survival of the
Right.
fittest and clearing out the bad seeds. Now, can I return to my breakfast?
Yeah, I wrote that down because I don't know, something about that felt like a telling sentence, like clearing out the bad seeds. I don't know. I think that might be something that turns up later because that was just such a great line. It's an ignorant line for him to say, but it was a great line that I think, I don't know, it might foretell something.
Well, it's probably in keeping with how maybe people actually felt back then too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people thought that was pretty insightful for old Darwin to say that.
Right.
But Maura speaks up and says that she just talked to her a couple of days ago and she seemed fine. But like you said, then Dr. Murray's just like, well, this is why women shouldn't practice
Right.
medicine, and just dismisses her. Now after he leaves, Ike just says, oh, you talked to her, and she mentions there's a family downstairs, the pregnant sister. The pregnant woman is her sister. And this gets Franz's notice. He kind of looks at the captain, and the captain says in German, don't tell anyone. And
Right.
Franz is like, shouldn't we tell her family? Now this, I don't know, this kind of surprised me a little bit, just because up till this point, Franz hasn't exactly seemed like he's that empathetic of a person, but all of a sudden he's concerned about the family. It seemed like an odd turn. So I don't know, part of me wonders if this is more about him wanting, because he clearly shows that he doesn't feel like Captain Ike is making good decisions, so he's going to
Right.
disagree with whatever decision he makes.
It was a little odd. I agree with you on that. I feel like I feel like he has empathy for them that live down there. He has empathy for those people. It is a little out of left field for him to all of a sudden gain empathy, but I was like, all right, I'll take it.
You have a
They,
soft soul after all,
they
Franz.
they need to have some ally, right? You can't have Angel just trying to get a little thrill with Chrysler and have that be their only ally. You know what I'm saying? Mora's off with Captain Ike all the time, so they need somebody.
That's true. That's true. Somebody that's not on hell, an opportunist. Although Franz might
Right.
be his own type of opportunist, but
Maybe. Yeah, that
yeah.
could lead to something.
Well, Franz just seems a little uncomfortable with this decision, but nobody has time to talk about it because the ship makes a big rumbling noise, and we just discover that it's slowing down.
Right.
And this is when they go on the deck, and the fog has descended upon the ship.
Yeah.
What did you notice in this scene? Because I don't know, if anything, there's a couple of things I noticed about the people on the deck.
I didn't notice anything in particular. Let me know what you're thinking.
Okay. Well, you know how we've been talking about, or I've been talking about in the last episode, how things almost seem a little bit like a video game and just very simplistic. Well, the people on the deck, there were all these people standing there. We have our main players being like Ike, Franz, Mara, and this new character, Wilhelm, who's, all he says is, there's a fog, Captain, what should we do?
Right.
But there's all the people on the deck looking out over the water, but nobody's really moving or saying anything or turning to look like, oh, there's the captain. What is he thinking? So it just almost looked like they were props. I don't know.
Like they're NPCs, like they're background characters in the game. I remember you mentioning that. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I was just kind of distracted by the action of what was happening. I didn't quite notice that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think nobody's probably supposed to notice it. You're like,
oh, okay,
because the action is in the center, with all these people.
Right,
but
right.
I don't know. It's just something that kind of struck me, because I don't know if I'm just picturing if I was one of these passengers who is really upset about everything that's happened, and I saw my captain come on, I would probably be like trying to hear what he had to say or what's going on in the middle. But leaving that there, Wilhelm just says, now that the compasses are busted and this fog is down, we can't really navigate. So what should we do? And Ike just says, well, let's just hold our position for now. And Franz and Sebastian share a glance.
Yeah, they're like this man done lost his mind. Because now,
yeah,
because the compasses have gone bad, and now we have the fog. And
mm-hmm.
his response is, yeah, let's just hang tight a little bit. Yeah, it's listen, I don't blame them. If I'm in their position, I'm like, what is going on with this guy? Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's not being competent, because Captain Ike is not being competent. He's not being a competent captain. So there's bound to be dissent in the ranks.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, he just says, Mara, I'm going to show you something over here.
Right. Come here, Mara. Let's play.
Mm-hmm. Now, this was just a total off thing, which has nothing to do with the plot. But this is the first time I noticed Mara is actually wearing pants. I assumed she was wearing a skirt, and she's almost wearing like these culottes or bolero pants. They're pants that are so wide that they almost look like a skirt. But when she walks off, I saw, oh, she's actually wearing pants, which just was it goes back to her feminist character that she's wearing this kind of altered outfit.
I gotta be honest. I didn't notice people changed clothes. Like I mean, of course, we see Ling in the beginning putting back on the geisha outfit, but I didn't notice that the main characters changed clothes. I was like, man, this must be over the span of like 24 plus hours that this has been going on, because I met. So that wasn't the same outfit Mara had on in episode 1, correct?
I think it might have been. It might have been the same outfit.
Oh, so yeah, they haven't had time to change their clothes.
Plus, I
Okay.
think people had different standards back then. This is when you might not have had running water. I don't know. I'm not clear what kind of plumbing they have on the ship at this time. But maybe people didn't have as many clothes. But yeah, Virginia seems to still be wearing the same green dress that she's wearing. I just assumed Mara was wearing a skirt so then when I saw she's wearing pants, I was like, how forward thinking of you. But so then Franz is back at it again. The captain's making a mistake, talks to Sebastian, but Sebastian doesn't really say anything. He doesn't agree or disagree, but he does look a little concerned.
You say, what you want me to do? We work for the guy. What you want me to do?
Sebastian I feel like he's trying to remain loyal to the captain. He's
right.
He's the typical, I don't know, what do they call him?
Middle management.
Middle management? Okay.
When you're in middle management, you can do enough to say, look, here's the plan that I heard from up above, but you can't do enough to really change course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's been given like a title,
right,
of first mate, which comes with authority. He probably gets a nicer room than everybody. So he doesn't want to go against the captain. But so back in the cabin, Ike shows Mara the ribbon and continues his trend of confiding in her. So he tells her all kinds of stuff, that his daughter is actually dead, that she and his wife died in a fire, and that yesterday he saw and heard her, which he already told her that, but he adds these other details, and says, how is this possible? Can we see things that aren't real? And Mara gives a very doctorly answer.
that was a very doctor answer. Like, well, the brain and such and such. And I'm like, I don't think this man needs this right now. I think you need to show your hand a little bit more and kind of go with what he's saying.
Yeah, the brain, she doesn't say the brain is wider than the sky, but she does say that the brain gets electrical impulses that are what we see and feel and hear. She's almost being a Dr. Murray here. Not quite to that level, but
right.
She just says, that's how people go mad, and sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
And Ike looks pretty upset, but he's like, all right, I'm going to show you another card in my deck, which is the shaft underneath his bed. So Ike is continuing to let Mara into his train of thoughts, but like we said last episode, she is still holding her cards pretty close to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, he tells her he's going to go. He wants to examine the logbook that should have been on the Prometheus and Prometheus, and he's like, it wasn't there, so I'm going to go look for it. Mm-hmm. And Mara is ride or die here, just like faster.
Yeah, I'm coming with you.
Yeah, she's gonna come with. So then here we go back down to the third class, and Ankur, Ada's dad, is holding her doll. They still haven't heard their daughter is dead yet, because the captain said that, and Tove is has been looking for her just like Crester, and it's kind of this is a heartbreaking scene here, but kind of strange, it's she's like basically like, Dad, do something, and the mom just says, we just need to pray with us. It kind of feels like that thoughts and prayers thing we'll do.
Yeah, that kind of happens a lot with Black families too, where it's like, we just need to pray, and praying is fine, especially if that's your faith, such as myself. But it's like, sometimes action needs to be made. And I can understand the frustration. Tove has. I can understand and Chrester's frustration, and it feels like you're trapped in a box where when all you have is prayers. When you're in a desperate situation, you got to fight. So I completely empathize with them.
What was interesting about this scene is you almost have this battle of wills, because Tove is like, Dad, do something, but the wife says, hey, let's pray. And it was, I don't know, a lot of times I feel like, there's like a, male-led households, and it seems like the mom is almost the strong one of the two, like she's influencing him more. I don't know. It's a very minor statement, but just something that I noticed. That was, I don't know, just noticed that.
Could be a slight tale.
Yeah. So now we're back with Ling and Virginia. We have the examination of I don't know, this is another thing that kind of creeped me out a lot. Just the way that Virginia is here, with having her get dressed, and I'm gonna see if you're clean, and I mean, Virginia's making she's making true of her name. Her name means virgin, so I guess she's real concerned with everybody's virginity and how clean they are.
I didn't catch on to that. I didn't catch on to that at all. Yeah, I mean, it was creepy, but I was more so like, this is just her being, it's her being more controlled in her occupation. Like, she needs to look at her investment. She needs to make sure her investment. But I was like, wouldn't you kind of be doing this exam a long time ago, right before you got on the ship? Yeah. That's what made me kind of go like, why now? I feel like you've been on the ship enough to where, desire meets opportunity, I think is the line that comes out of her mouth. But like, where the opportunity probably would have came and gone, like you didn't look into your investment for this beforehand. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting because what she tells her is, she says, I need to see if you're clean. She's not checking if she's a virgin, because she's surprised to find that out. But she says, I need to see if you're clean. So I don't really know what she was doing exactly, and maybe I don't want to know. I'm not a madam, so I don't have to worry about like but she removes her ring and
Oh, that complicates things. Okay, maybe I misread it. I misread it.
I don't know that you misread it. I don't understand what she's really doing in this examination.
I think she's looking for diseases. I think she knows how to spot that. I
Oh,
think that's
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a different time.
I see. Okay. Yeah, there's no for someone who wants to make sure Ling is clean, she doesn't use any gloves or anything. So definitely a different time, like you said. Um she's surprised to find Ling is a virgin because she's supposed to be one of her best girls. She
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like being deceived, but she does like surprises. um Another great Virginia line. We should make a calendar out of these, I think.
She does have
Um
good dialogue.
and Ling is just to be ready at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
So now we have Ike and Mara on the lowering deck, and Franz and Sebastian are supposed to see them off. And Franz tries again. Respectfully, Captain.
Mm-hmm.
You can't leave. You can't leave again. They shouldn't be doing this. And Sebastian speaks up for the first time and agrees and says that something is wrong with the Prometheus. Shouldn't we just leave the Prometheus and go on our merry way? And of course, Ike is not going to agree.
Right.
He's going to continue in his quest to find the logbook.
Yes. And well, I'll let you move on to the next scene.
Okay.
I didn't have much to add about that scene, but it's the moment right after that had my eyes really go big.
Are you talking about the buttons?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Talk about the buttons.
So basically, Sebastian uncovers a panel, and I believe it's the same panel that we saw get typed out and sent in. That was back in episode 1, wasn't it? Or was it 2?
I'm not sure. I think this is a brand new panel, but
Oh,
episode 2 we had the ticker tape come out with the triangles.
right. That's what I was referring to. Was he looking at something different than the tape?
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, there's a panel and it has a sequence of triangles, and we see him input these triangles into. I don't really know what that was. I don't know if that was the engine or if that was a communication device, but we see him input these triangles into the thing, and we see it, working and clicking. And I don't know. It made my eyes go big. I said, I know somebody is watching all of this. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's a programmer. I think all this is a simulation. That's my theory.
Oh, coming out with the theories.
I mean, it would make sense for your gamer NPC comment where you said there's people that stand around like they're props. It would make sense. You know what I mean? It reminds me of this film with Matthew McConaughey. The movie's just okay, but Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway called I think it's called Serenity. Um and I think Jason Isaac is in it too. I think that's the actor's name. But yeah, it feels like a simulation.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I know is that the ticker tape that came out in episode 2 when we
It was 2. Okay.
I'm trying to remember, or maybe it was 1. I don't remember, but it came out and it was just triangles, and we were just like, what on earth? So apparently it's a code, and Sebastian's putting it in, and that we had a triangle that with the point sticking up. So, and then the triangle with the point sticking down. So, we've got, I don't know, a form of binary code here or something. And then the red button is in the middle. Now he pushed both of those triangles multiple times, but he did not press the red button. I don't know. I saw the red button. It reminds me of Ren and Stimpy, that skit with the big shiny red button. And he's not supposed to push it.
I vaguely remember what you're talking about, but I can picture it in my head because it's Ren and Stimpy. Stimpy pushed it. Oh no. Who was the dog? Stimpy was the dog, right?
Stimpy is the little, I think, I don't know.
Chihuahua.
Honestly, I can't remember. There's like Chihuahua and the
The
bigger
big
guy. The
cat.
bigger
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
dude presses it and then hides really
Okay, yeah.
quickly.
Sounds about right. Sounds
Yeah.
about right.
But nobody pressed the red button because who knows what that would do. But there's a clicking noise and a whirring noise as if something has come to life, but we don't really see what that is. Sebastian just locks it back up and goes on his merry way.
Mm-hmm.
So he might be communicating with the person that was watching the TV, or I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
So back in Mara's room, the boy is just sitting on the bed and looking very sad and thoughtful. Goes to pick up the black pyramid and goes under the bed. And then there was this noise like a panel moving. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about you, but I wondered if there was a panel under Mara's bed. Like, what was the
Maybe.
boy doing under the bed?
I didn't catch that. That scene was so short to me. I didn't catch that there was something underneath, that there could have been something underneath the bed, and that it could have directly been related to the panel scene. It's a good catch. I didn't catch that part. I thought that was kind of like a blink and you'll miss it type of shot, because I do remember him holding the black triangle.
Yeah, he just goes under the bed, under the skirt, so we can't see anything. But you heard this sort of, it almost sounded like something heavy was being lifted and moved a little bit.
Right.
So he might have had a panel, or maybe he was, who knows what he was doing down there. But he doesn't come out till much later in the episode, so I don't know what what he's doing. But
That'll be interesting if he's communicating with the panel, or if that's why he's quote unquote there.
yeah, if there's if there's a shaft that goes down, like what was he doing
Right.
down there? So then we come back to Mara and Ike rowing towards the Prometheus, and Mara wants to know why Ike wanted her to be in the infirmary. And he just he says he respects her opinion and that he doesn't believe she does let emotions cloud her judgment. And Mara looks very pleased to hear this, but she doesn't get all enthusiastic about it, but she kind of has a little smile, and
Yeah.
it's just a nice moment of bonding for them, I guess. Another one. And he compliments her further and says that it was nice of her to take the boy in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Mara finally opens up to Ike just a little bit and tells him she had a miscarriage, because he wants to know if she has kids. She tells him she had a
Right.
miscarriage and that there were complications, and now she can't have children.
Yeah, I like this. This is a very telling moment of Moore and Ike, and I like the piece of dialogue Moore says about the boy, where he's like he says why do you care for the boy? He says, well, we both lost everything. I want to know more about what that means on her side of things, but I like the empathy that comes from her, because she is a woman that's guarded. She's a woman that keeps her hand close to her chest, as she should. As a moment that we see later on shows that she should. But I like the tender moment as well.
Mm-hmm. So then we have Ling and Yuck, and Yuck is continuing her rail about things, and we find a little bit more information. I got the sense that Yuck is probably was a prostitute herself and was part of that life, and she doesn't want that same for Ling.
Right.
So she's upset that things are taking this turn. And it's, I don't know, a typical mother-daughter dynamic. You've got the mom who's like, I was trying to protect you by, taking on this burden, and Ling is kind of like, I felt trapped. And you mentioned she feels like she's in a box. So she basically
Great
says
motif.
she's in a box.
Right.
And that it felt like a prison. Every time a man came on the boat, she had to hide, and it felt like a prison.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this reminded me of that conversation Clemens had with Jerome back last episode too. She's talks about it must feel like being in a prison to be part of this ship's crew.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of as a theme that's carried over. But I feel like Ling, and I'd like to hear your thoughts too, but I feel like Ling isn't necessarily like all excited about being a prostitute, but I think she wants to make her own choices and to have agency. And so she's like, why is it a big deal? You do it. Why can't I do it? I know how to do it. And at least she feels like maybe she has some agency over it. And that's why she chose that.
I took it as she's got nowhere to be but be trapped in her box. I think being a prostitute and sharing the same fate as her mother is her being trapped in a box. There is agency there, but it's agency that came through an accidental action, which we'll
Mm-hmm.
touch on. And I feel like she put herself in a box. She's in a box that she put herself in. I don't think she's looking at it as like, well, it's easy. You did it. I think she's looking at herself as like I think there's a myriad of complicated emotions happening with Link. I feel like she's rolling with the punches she has, and she's trying to make the best of it and not be a mopey mope like her mama.
Mm-hmm.
But she's also going like, if I could rewind the clock, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want us in this situation. And there's also a little bit of self pity there. You know, you see
Mm-hmm.
self pity, you see self woe that her mother has, and you realize the apple doesn't really fall far from the tree in that regard. I feel like she's feeling that way on the inside, complaining about everything and like, why are we here? But on the outside, she's like, Mom, stop it. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Yuck makes this thing that she wanted a better life for her, and Ling says, a better life. What are you calling a good life? And I guess I like what you said. I just think she's sometimes when you are like she feels like she's in a box, sometimes you try to escape your fate by
Mm-hmm.
doing you try to make a choice to get yourself out of the box and you end up just back fulfilling that prophecy again. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on here. Like she's thinking, I'm gonna make this choice. I will run away. I will run away to England and take on this disguise and escape this other fate that I didn't want, thinking it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
better, but I'm just going to end up back in the box again. So it's almost like you're helpless. You can't really do anything. Even when you try to make choices, you end up back in the same situation.
Right.
Um, and this is another moment with the mom that really bugged me is that she says, once you go down this path, there's no
Mm-hmm.
going back. This is a stain that won't rub off. And it kind of reminded me of that old chewing gum theory, like with the purity movement, and people would say, um, you know, if you don't stay a virgin, you're like old chewing gum.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I'm struggling to find things I like about Yuck at this point, I guess. I mean, she is a minor character, so maybe I don't have to like her, but I'm not I'm not finding much empathy for her.
I think she's a necessary foil as a character to get us more invested in Ling and her journey.
Hmm.
I feel like it's necessary to have the nagging mom to understand the three-dimensional daughter, so to speak.
Hmm.
She's not annoying me too much. She's not annoying me as much as the silent boy. But I feel like I can tolerate her.
At least she's speaking,
Right, right. At least she's
sharing her
speaking.
thoughts. So at this point, Ling runs
Mm-hmm.
and she's trying to escape her box and she goes back and ends up back in another box, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it must have been difficult to run in those shoes. because she's wearing her geisha attire, drops the wig on the deck,
Right.
and hides in this cage. And she has another vision, another dream, whatever you want to call it. And just like Ike in episode 2, he had one thing where he was looking at the fire from a distance, and then he's in the fire. I mean, it starts out that we see her in the box, but in this next vision, she's watching herself inside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very strange. But I guess this one she sees a memory of her. I'm assuming it's a memory of her and her mom. And you see that somebody died because of a drink. We don't see who, but we find out later that it's her friend.
Right.
The person she took her place, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we don't find that out till later, but in this moment she's in the box again, and not only that, but she and her mother are the ones that drop the box into the water. So they push and are, so I'm not sure mentally what's going on here, but she feels responsible for this girl, obviously,
Of
and is
course.
imagining what it must be like, would have been like to be in this box and then pushed into the water to drown.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And I would say when we transition into this whole sequence, you hear that static noise again. It feels almost like you're turning you're turning a TV channel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that gives another point to the simulation theory, if I'm right. But yeah, she speaks to her friend, and again, you have that phrase again. Wake up, please wake up this time.
Mm-hmm.
As her friend is like falling out towards her death. And I think in my mind, I was like, maybe her friend was the one that said wake up when she woke up from her dream in the beginning. Because somebody has to be saying this to these people, or somebody has to be saying this in their mind or in their consciousness or unconsciousness. And I think it was probably her friend.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure who said it, but we do just get this sense of her drowning, and Oleg then shows up. He's heard her cries and comes to her rescue, I guess you could say. Now
Mm.
she's speaking Cantonese, he's speaking Polish, so they can't understand anything they're saying to each other verbally, but Oleg does his best to signal to her that everything's okay, and he gives her his jacket, and he helps her to hide from her mom. So I thought that was cool. He's not saying
Right.
like, "Oh, she's over here,"
Mm-hmm.
but he's like, he understands her need to hide for some reason, that she wants to get away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a nice matchup. Him and Ling. I feel like they're both characters that I don't feel like he's trapped in a box, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
he's a nice counterpart to her. Like who's my man that's the castaway? What's his character?
Jerome.
What's it like Jerome is a nice counterpart to I believe it's Clemence's wife.
Clemens, yeah.
Her name is Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Jerome is a nice counterpart to Clemens. I thought that was a nice matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like them fine together. I'm not totally in love with Ling and Oleg yet. I think Oleg is so sweet, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess I'm not seeing his attraction for her yet, but because she's wearing
Okay.
all that makeup, and but obviously she is attractive. Maybe
Yeah, it's nothing wrong with the
I don't
makeup.
know.
You know,
It's a lot of
nothing
makeup.
wrong. Right. I got you.
But I mean, I'm not a guy. I'm a girl, but I'm like, um,
Mm-hmm.
she's buried under all those layers, and she's very insecure. I don't know about insecure people aren't always the most attractive, but something in
Mm-hmm.
Oleg senses she at least needs a friend. So I'm not sure if I don't necessarily sense like sexual tension, between them
Right.
yet, but he's kind to her, and he's a good, steady, reliable person, in a crisis, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I got you.
um So at this point, we have Franz coming down and disobeys the captain's order directly for the first time and tells Tove, where her sister is and leads her there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she's picking up the body to carry it back to her family. And this very beautiful song plays. I can't even hope to like pronounce this, but the title of the song translates in English as "To Help Her Soul on Its Way."
Hmm.
There are no lyrics for me to find, but um, I really liked the song, and it's a very though she's carrying her sister's body. Franz is behind her, and then all the people are taking their hats off as she brings her sister to her parents, and they finally know what they don't know who killed her or why, but they
Right.
know that she's dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty sad scene, man. Um, the music does add to it, I believe. But yeah, I feel like this is a nice moment to get the tension going. It's a sad scene and it's a somber scene, and
Mm-hmm.
it makes it makes you question yourself if Crester will be corrupted, because I don't know what it's like. Crester kind of, pun intended, comes off like an angel, so to speak. He comes off innocent. He comes off like he's a good old boy, but you see his frustration in the scene when Ada's dead body is reunited with her people down below the ship. You know, yeah, I feel like that was a nice somber scene.
Yeah, Crester's not there initially, but he does eventually make it down, and
Oh
that's
shoot,
when
go
he
jumping ahead again.
no,
Sorry.
that's it's fine. We can talk about that now, but because I thought that was very striking. Um, he's busy with Angel at the time, which we can go back and talk about that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But when he finally comes back, he finds his sister is dead, and he does this thing where he grabs the chair and you know bangs upon the window and is trying to open it, and then he uses his bare fist and he makes a statement that if the window isn't open, her soul can't get out. And
Mm.
I was like, what is going on here? Looked into that, and apparently it's a typical Danish funeral custom that when a body is dying, so it doesn't even have to be dead, but even before when somebody's on their way to dying, and then um after they're dead, you're supposed to leave them in fresh air so that their soul can return to the elements in nature
Mm-hmm.
and become one with that. So this is devastating for them because she's
Right.
down, trapped in the bars, trapped in the cage, trapped in the box, and um Crester is trying to find some kind of air and is not able to do that.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. That's a wow. That's an interesting saying. That's very poetic. That reminds me of like, I, I think I think it's an Irish saying. I don't know, but it's like you got when you die, you got like 30 minutes before the devil knows you're dead or something like that. I forgot what I heard, but
Mm-hmm.
hmm, I like that. That's an interesting saying.
Um, so speaking of Crester and Angel, so this we had this scene before where up until this point, Angel's been acting like a weird a predator, I guess. He's
Mm-hmm.
just invading Crester's personal space over and over again and being weird about it. And we haven't really been clear about how Crester's feeling about any of this. And even in this moment, it's very odd because he sees Angel, and I think, he speaks to him. He's frustrated. Frustration leads to opportunity, I guess. But he's telling him, we can't find my sister. And I don't know, maybe he thought Angel would open the gate. I don't know. But Angel they have this interesting bit of conversation. It turns sexual. They're giving each other hand jobs, but they do have this interesting conversation at the same time where Angel talks about wearing a mask, and that he's been wearing a mask his whole life, but Crester is wearing his mask on his face. Like everybody, well, he's not wearing a mask. Everybody can see the scar on him. Now, a scar does not make you who you are, but I guess, and we're talking about a different time in history. Even if we're in a simulation, we're in a past time in history, and this was probably the time still when people look, if you have any kind of disfigurement or scar or disability, that makes you tainted and a monster. So probably Crester's been not treated the best, maybe because of the scar on his face, and maybe it's a source of shame for him and his family. But Angel is fascinated by the scar, and maybe because, I don't know, he knows he's a twisted soul on the inside. But looks perfectly fine, right? Well, we did see he had scars on his back before too. So I thought, it was a definitely another interesting dynamic for them. I am wondering if they'll ever, Angel talks pretty openly with him, but Crester's not, doesn't really say much, and you wonder if they'll ever communicate farther than with physical touch.
That's my thing. I want to know, how long can we keep this up of some people on the ship not understanding each other? You know what I mean? Like it's such an interesting premise, the as you said, the Tower of Babel situation. But it's like, yeah, even with Angel and Crester, like how long can we kind of keep this up? What's Angel's like angle here? You know what I mean? Like what's the end game? I think Crester just wants to escape. He to be out. I know his end game and all of this. I just don't know Angel's.
Well, isn't it the same? I mean, isn't he just bored? I mean, he got sort of what he wanted. We find out later, and we can just go into that now. We find out more about Angel and Ramiro, and that what their origin was, that Ramiro killed a man, and he's wearing someone else's clothes, so just like Ling, all because Angel couldn't control himself. And so now Angel has access to Ramiro. They have a cabin, they can do whatever they want, but he's bored, so he's like looking for another distraction with Crester. Isn't it the same? Like maybe he's just bored and trapped and
it could unhappy. Be, but it strikes me as like, Angel will probably get bored with Crester. He'll probably look for somebody else to manipulate and have a power play over. I think Angel's like play, if I'm just gonna like make theories, I think it's just power. He's looking for the next thing to have power over and to be dominant over. I don't know if it's an escape. I think it's just looking for, okay, I beat this level. I beat the level of Ramiro. Now it's time to go to the level of Crester. Now it's time for me, again, that video game metaphor. Now it's time to go to the next level. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. In my opinion.
I love how you're continuing to add on to that theory. It's like, now we're going to the next level up.
Right, right. Time to level up.
Um, so we have this. We're continuing now with Mara and Ike on their journey to the Prometheus.
Mm-hmm.
They find this. They do find the logbook. He shows her the panel in that ship too, because she finds the subway tile. They find the
Mm-hmm.
logbook. Well, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. They didn't find the logbook right away, but they're looking inside of these incinerators. I
Right.
wasn't sure what room of the ship they were on here, if it was like the boiler room, the room where like Oleg works on the Kerberos. Was it? I couldn't tell what
I
we
think
were
it was
looking
the
at
boiler
here.
room. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken.
And there's this thought that maybe they burned the bodies of the
Mm-hmm.
people because of these, these machines get 900 degrees Celsius, and that's what it takes to incinerate a body. So they start to look through the ashes, and
Right.
Mara is like, look for signs of teeth and skull, because those things are harder to burn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where the dynamic changes again between Mara and Ike. Because they're both looking in different ovens,
Mm-hmm.
and he does find something,
Yes.
but chooses not to tell her. Um,
Yeah. I look at it as they call it, I think they call it a tete a tete. You know, up until this point, Mara has kept her hand close to her chest, hasn't budged, except maybe to talk about the little boy and how they both lost everything and how she can't have children. That's more of a personal thing, but it, like, as far as like, what the hell is going on here, she hasn't really said much.
mm-hmm,
So he says, you know what, maybe I should hide something from her. I've given everything over to her. I've given a lot of information over to her, and maybe I should keep this to myself and not let her know I got this logbook here, because she
mm-hmm.
asks like, hey, what you got over there? Nothing. I found nothing.
Yeah, there's a whole book, but he only takes the one page.
Right, right.
Um, but he also tells her, we'll talk about the page in just a second, but he also
Mm-hmm.
tells her another thing, which is um a few months ago there was 3 German ships that were sold to a wealthy British
Yes.
investor named Henry Singleton.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what did that do to you?
Henry Singleton. I got it didn't really do anything. Is that
Okay.
was did I miss something?
Well, maybe. The letter that Mara has is says Henry on the front, on the envelope. Her
Oh,
letter that says
okay.
what lost will be found.
From her brother.
Yeah, the letter from her brother.
Okay.
And we were wondering who Henry was, and we still don't exactly know, but when she showed it to the boy, she says, my brother wrote, I know he's not dead because he sent me this letter.
Right.
So
Okay.
somehow Mara is Henry. I haven't figured that out yet, but she tells the boy, the letter is from my brother to me. The letter says Henry,
Right.
and there's this wealthy British investor named Henry Singleton. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if Mara recognizes his name, she doesn't say a peep, but they put in a new communication system and refurbished everything. And the sign of the triangle is the company symbol, your favorite symbol.
Right, right.
And then he shows her this contraption, which is, it's supposed to measure the steam. What is that we said? Measure the steam levels in the ship, but it never worked on the Prometheus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he's getting suspicious now that things are not what people are saying they are. He knows the panel isn't supposed to be there, but it was put in after these after this Henry Singleton purchased the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Another interesting thing about this list, and I'm sort of jumping ahead, but I'm trying to condense time now. But and this might be just an off thing, but when he first looks at the list, we see he looks at it and says, well, he doesn't share, but he makes a giant face like and this is when he starts ignoring Mora. In the list says passenger list of the Prometheus, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
On the backside is some of the passengers. Later, we see he pulls it out again, and we see the name Mara Franklin on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So Mara was a passenger, or supposed to be a passenger, on the Prometheus.
Yeah.
Now that's
terrific.
Go ahead.
Yeah, very, very weird. You about to say that's weird?
No, I was gonna bring up something else, but go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that was just a terrific mic drop moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, this episode towards its end, in the beginning, it's still turning its wheels plot wise, but towards its end, it's really pushing us more into the game of what's going on here. Yeah, so I thought that was a terrific mic drop moment. I really enjoyed that.
Right. There's these other names, but Mara Franklin is the main one we're looking at. But another thing which is very strange is when you look at the list, it looks different the 2nd time. The front page says underneath passenger list Prometheus, it says Captain Ike. Or it doesn't say Captain Ike. It says his name. Anyway, it just has his name. So there's like the list looks different the 2nd time he looks at it. But I don't know. I don't know if that means anything or not, but the piece of paper I'm saying has changed just slightly.
I wonder why they wanted the ship sink when they got the message from the shipping company called Sink Ship. Was it so Ike wouldn't come across this passenger list?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like were they hiding something?
Right.
Wanting, just to keep something covered up. As again, it seems like this is expensive technology that's on these ships to be just throwing around. So we see more with Ling, and we get to see clearly how she killed this accidentally killed her friend by poisoning her. And Oleg, she tells Oleg that she's done something horrible. The kimono doesn't belong to me. And the last thing she says, which is, we are not supposed to have dreams.
Yeah, I love that, man. She says, when we take what doesn't belong to us, dreams turns to nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a great line. Now, we want to give Virginia her own calendar, but I think that line needs to have one of the months, where I think fall turns to winter. Is that how it goes? Well, fall turns to winter, dreams turns to nightmares. We need to have that line right there for December.
Sounds good. Sounds good. You make it, and I'll support you. So okay, so Ling is now, she's resigned herself to this 8:00 appointment. And we have a very brief scene with Clements that Lucien is in the room, and he has a shaky hand, and he's takes one of these vials, and she comes in the room, and he drops the vial and just kicks it under the desk. And then he goes to hang out with Ling in room 2108.
Yep.
And she does a dance with a fan, and then she thinks it's she's going to, lose her virginity, and Lucien just says, no, that's not what I want. It kind of reminded me of that scene in Leaving Las Vegas when Nicolas Cage says, can we just talk? There's been scenes like this before where, you hire a prostitute and you're like, I don't want to do anything like that. I just want to talk and be here in the same room as you.
Right. And I think also in that scene, he goes, she starts going over just matter of factly going over the rates of what each thing he could do to her. He goes, wow, whoa, that they do that to you. Like, yeah.
You're talking about Leaving Las Vegas now.
Yeah. It was the same scene where Nicholas was like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to do that.
And Lucien just mentions that he thought this is what he wanted: first class, nice clothes, better life, and nothing ever turns out like you expect. I feel like this is the most information we've gotten about Lucien. We don't really know much about him still, and
right.
maybe he's just a minor character.
I don't know much about it yet, but I'm willing to throw a slight bet out there that Lucien might be the spotlight character for the next episode. I don't know anything about episode 4 yet, except it's called The Fight. So I don't know.
So he has a full-on seizure.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Ling reacts to this is pretty interesting. I mean, she looks shocked a little, like her eyes are blinking and she doesn't know what to do, but she ends up just kneeling down next to him. And I was, then we don't see Ling the rest of the episode. But I have to be honest with you, I was like, oh gosh, is she gonna comfort him or is she gonna kill him? I don't know. I was just wondering what was gonna come next.
I don't think she knew what to do, actually. It is a weird scene because you would expect her to go like, oh, help, Virginia, like come help, but she kind of just stands there. I don't know. That's a weird response. That's kind of response to those people out there on the deck while the captain comes out. None of them kind of respond to the captain. It's giving simulation vibes.
Yeah. She just kind of kneels down next to him. Now, he did say, don't worry, it just lasts a little while.
Right.
And, we have to remember, too, that Ling has mentioned she's watched her mom do this 1,000 times. So who knows? Maybe she's seen it all. Maybe
right.
It's never happened. She's never been the one that it happened to before, but I was like, okay, well, maybe she just realizes my job is to be a comforter and just to be here with him. That's what I'm being paid for. So I'm just going to ride the wave. She does seem shocked, but she also just gets down the floor next to him.
Is this part of the kink? Like, is this part of the transaction here? Right.
Yeah. I'm just supposed to do whatever this guy asks, so I will. So after Mar and Ike get back, they, the temperature has changed. And we've already sort of finished their arc, but it's clear that Ike he's either just keeping his cards to the chest, or he's kind of full on annoyed with Mara that, okay, now he doesn't trust her, so he's not going to tell her anything either. Then this is when Franz decides he's just going to hand out guns to everybody in third class.
Start a mutiny. Why not? Let's just start an uprising.
And it's interesting, his dynamic with Tove now. It's like, I don't know if they seem into each other, but they're like, all right, we're sort of a team now. They're like they're on the same side.
Everybody wants something. I think Franz wants Tove. Like I said, there is empathy there, but everyone's out to get something. You know what I mean?
He relates. I think if nothing else, they relate to each other because he's frustrated that the captain's making poor decisions. She's frustrated that her dad is making poor decisions. So maybe they just have that in common, and they recognize that each other. We already talked about Angel and Ramiro and what we learned about them. And there's one more interaction here between Mara. Before we have the full-on mutiny, we have a Mara and Daniel scene, the only one of this episode.
Right.
Where he's, I'm starting to really, okay, so before I wasn't sure, okay, they're trying to make Daniel out to be kind of a jerk. But it's clear at least one thing. He's not on Team Ike at all.
Yes, he's not on that team.
He's just like, everybody's now gonna just, I knew this would happen. He's acting like a madman, and I don't agree with what he's doing, and he's clearly trying to get Mara to side against Ike, but she's not taking the bait. It comes off.
It does come off like Ike and Mara are a team throughout. Listen, every time he goes to the Prometheus, they turn it into a date. If that don't spell team, I don't know what does it, and I don't know what does.
Right now, they're having, Ike and Mara are having a lover's quarrel because he's not trusting her, but they'll get over it.
Right.
They'll be fine. But Daniel's trying to interject. He's trying to interject himself between those two, and it's not really working for him. And he seems real jealous because Ike said, she says, Mara feels for him. She knows the captain's lost everything. He's lost someone. And Daniel says, well, I lost someone too, so what about me?
Right. Yeah, it came off like another mustache twirling scene. What am I gonna say to her little pretty ear now to turn her around? And she's like, no, get lost, man.
Oh, we did. And with Daniel, the other thing we saw with him is that he went into the boys, he went into Mara's room with his beetle and asked the boy, did you find it?
Yeah. So here we got a slight development. Still not saying anything, but now we get a shake of the head from the boy. So we got something 3 episodes in.
Yeah, I don't think with Mara he even nodded his head or shook it. So
all he did was grab her wrist like she stole something.
Yeah, but he nods his head, and Daniel looks really pissed. But now we know for sure that these two are somehow working together, even if it's maybe the boy isn't. He seems a little afraid of Daniel, I would say.
Yeah.
Ramiro tries to warn Ike, but of course, Ike can't understand him. And so then the mutiny happens, and Tove says, turn the ship around.
Right.
And then the big ending this time is Daniel has some weird, go ahead.
I want to say before we got to that, way before Ramiro was the one to come warn the captain, my man, the coal guy, his name is Oleg, right?
Oleg, yes.
Oleg. I love how he's the one in the beginning that's about to do the right thing and tell the captain, but then they go, no, get him.
That's right. He tries to quietly kind of saunter towards the door.
Yeah, I love how him and Jerome always find each other. The whole episode, we didn't know where Jerome was until we find out, he's been locked up in his room, and now Oleg's in there with him now. So, because I think Jerome, if he was in the same position, he would have tried to do the same thing. If the roles were reversed and Oleg was the one in the brig, Jerome probably would have tried to tell.
Yeah. Well, thank you for reminding me of that because I did skip past that, but it was yeah, I was glad to see Jerome that he's still alive and kicking in there. He doesn't look too
Right.
good, but that was a funny scene because Oleg is like everybody's like, yeah, and then he just kind of quietly moves towards the exit.
It reminds me of that gif of Homer in The Simpsons where he fades into the grass.
Yes, yes, exactly. And Franz, he only has two strategies, I think. One of them is to disagree with the captain. The other one is to knock someone unconscious. So like just with Jerome, he was like, how do we deal with stowaways? We punch them in the face. And then with Oleg, he just headbutts him with a rifle.
Someone knocked unconscious. Is it a long walk to the brig? Because he was alive and conscious when they threw him in there. Like I'm like maybe he wasn't
Well,
knocked out for that long.
maybe not, but they do the thing where they cut to a black screen, so you
Right,
think
right, right.
maybe they were, he was knocked out. He was, what did they call it? He was down for the count for that moment.
KO'd.
Um so now are we ready for the
Oh
for
yeah, go
the
ahead. I just wanted to mention that because that was just funny to me.
yeah. So now we have Daniel pulling out another weird little contraption from his pocket that reminds me of that game that you try to put the numbers in order and they're all messed up, and there's only one empty space and you have to move all the squares around. He does that, and then the contraption that Ike said never works fires up and a ship disappears. Now, I thought when I first saw this, I thought it was the Prometheus that disappeared.
The Prometheus doesn't have its lights on, I don't think.
Right, right. So it's the ship that had the lights on that disappeared. So the
Right.
Kerberos and all of its passengers
I
have
just
gone somewhere.
I love it. I love it. I love how the end of the second episode had me a little on edge, cocking my head strangely, and this one had me almost break my neck. I love the cliffhanger. I love this so much. More questions, but I like where I'm going here.
Well, let's hear what are your most roaring
So,
questions?
in the beginning, I thought this all was a simulation, but the fact that a whole ship is able to like be just vanish like that, and I don't know where it's going. I don't know what timeline it's going to. I don't know if things are restarting. It definitely complicates the theories of what's happening here. All I know is time is involved, and how they manipulate time has me wondering what's going on. I wonder if Daniel is a time traveler, if he can take things with him throughout time and throughout dimensions. I definitely have my mind going in those directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me wonder if this whole thing's been a setup.
Right.
Like the Prometheus was a tool to get everybody wound up and ready to commit mutiny. Now that that's happened, Daniel's like, "Oh, we're ready for level 2." Go back to the video game.
Right, right.
We're done. We've accomplished the goal we had for this level, which was to get a mutiny to happen. And now that that's happened, we're ready for the next step. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess the main things I wonder about are why are these bodies dying? Like what is causing the deaths? Because we still haven't resolved that. I'm not convinced with Dr. Murray's diagnosis. That doesn't convince me. So I want to know why these bodies are dropping dead. Or are they just the prop? Well, we know we've met Ada, so they can't all be. I was like, are these just the prop bodies?
Right.
But we met Ada, so what are Jerome and Oleg gonna get up to? Next episode would be nice to find out.
there was a moment in the episode where Franz saw the first pile of like dead bodies, and I don't know if it was just me. I don't know. It looks like they were almost in a triangle shape. Not too much. It was kind of abstract, but it looks like
Mm-hmm.
if you turned them around the white way, it could have formed a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Their bodies, I mean.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It wasn't completely,
Right.
lined up that way, but it was definitely like, oh, head to toe, or, different angles, and yeah. Um, why is Mora's name on the Prometheus list is an obvious thing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, back in the day, what happened? Maybe you were like supposed to be on the ship and then you got sick. It's like, did she just call in sick? I just couldn't make it, but she was supposed to be on there, but she's never mentioned that. Um, who the frick is Henry Singleton?
Right.
Is it Mora, or, who is that? Is it a different person? And then I want to know what the boy was supposed to be finding in the room too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I well, whatever is happening with Prometheus, Mora knows what happens on the ship because like the opening scene, she's talking to her dad. Uh, Dad, I know what happened on the ship, or
Mm,
whoever father is supposed to be, and so whatever happened, she knows.
mm-hmm. Or she thinks she knows what happened on the Prometheus. But yes, she definitely
Right.
knew something. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely ready for the next episode.
I am too.
Um, so any other things you have to throw in here?
If I think about it off the top, no, I think I really just got the lingering questions of like the TV screens. Where did the ship end up going to? I think those are my lingering questions, and trying to figure out just what Angel was really trying to do besides to dominate and have power over other characters. I feel like he could end up doing. I think he's going to end up doing a bonehead move. By the time this season is over, he's going to be one of those. He's gonna end up doing a bonehead move
Mm-hmm.
that puts people in jeopardy.
Yeah. He seems like there's probably shrapnel around him all the time.
Right.
Okay, well, I think that's gonna cut it for this episode. Our next episode is called The Fight. We've already mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
So remind people where they can find you.
Of course. Hopefully Elon Musk hasn't stopped me from doing this, but you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Blakcinephile. That's Blakcinephile all together without the letter C. You can find my podcast anywhere where you listen to podcasts on YouTube. You can find it as a double feature versus spelled out. And yeah, you can also find my written film reviews on 8bitwaffles.com. And yeah, that's it for me.
Anything in particular you are working on in the short future? Like next, I'm going to be doing.
So next I'm gonna be writing a review for The Whale. I'm
Mm,
trying to knock out The Whale, Empire of Light, in another film, but my next review I'm uploading is The Whale,
mhm.
just released locally around here. So I'm gonna try to get that out. A spoiler-free review, of course. I always write spoiler-free reviews.
Great. Okay, for me, I'm one of my stories, and you can find me on Twitter, Letterboxd, YouTube, SoundCloud, whatever. My next thing will be making, besides the next episode of this, the next thing I'll be doing is making my top 10 list of 2022 before we ring in the new year.
Oh yeah,
So, you gonna do that too?
I'm yeah, I'm going to be working on that too. We're going to be talking about that on my podcast with our compare our top 10 list. And yeah, you can also find me at Letterbox at Blakcinephile. I
Mhm.
keep I'm new to Letterbox. I'm new to plugging it.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Well, enjoy your journeys through 1899, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.